Greetings, welcome to Module 3, Unit 11. This unit is concerned with Criterion 2 of SAR, Program Curriculum and Teaching Learning Processes. In the last unit, we understood the processes used to define the vision, mission and PEOs. We also looked at the nature of the matrix of PEOs and elements of mission statements and justification of the correlations. That was criterion 1 of SAR. The outcome for this unit is understand the SAR requirements related to program curriculum, that is criterion 2 of SAR, program curriculum teaching learning processes. So, in this unit we will be looking at the sub criterion 2.1, which is program curriculum. In the next unit we will look at the next sub criterion, which is 2.2. Criterion 2 is concerned with program curriculum and teaching learning processes. The sub criteria, the required processes, the allocation of marks and the required exhibits differ between tier 1 and tier 2 institutes. This is the allocation of marks. There are two sub criteria under criterion 2, 2.1 program curriculum, 2.2 teaching learning processes. For tier 1 institute, it is 30 marks and 70 marks, totaling 100 marks. For tier 2, it is 20 marks and 100 marks, totaling 120 marks. Before we proceed, at the outset, it is worth mentioning that NBA requires fairly large amount of detail to be provided by the department under this criterion. It can be quite daunting and taxing task for a department to provide all these details, at least if it is going for the accreditation for the first time. However, all the information required is quite logical, related to the criteria, and it requires to be provided by the department. So, sub criterion 2.1 program curriculum for tier 1 institute. There are 4 sub criteria. State the process for designing the program curriculum. Note that for a tier 1 institute, the curriculum design is the responsibility of the department itself. So, first sub criterion deals with the process for designing the program curriculum, 10 marks, structure of the curriculum 5 marks, state the components of the curriculum 5 marks, the process used to identify the extent to which the curriculum addresses the POs and PSOs. State the process used to identify extent of compliance of the curriculum for attaining the POs and PSOs. This has 10 marks. So, a total of 30 marks. If you look at the guidelines for these sub criteria, we will get an understanding of the requirements that the department has to meet in order to score well under this criterion. The process for designing the program curriculum. Evaluation guidelines would be the process used to demonstrate how the program curriculum is evolved and periodically reviewed considering the POs and PSOs. It is also interesting that NBA expects the industry to be involved in the process of formulating the curriculum for a tier 1 institute. So, it also looks at the involvement of the industry. The department must provide documentary evidence to indicate the process which demonstrates how the program curriculum is evolved and periodically reviewed considering the POs and PSOs. The department must have a process document and also it must have the implementation records. The implementation records must show active participation of all the stakeholders concerned. The process document must specify the composition of the board of studies, the periodicity of the meeting, and the inclusion of industry in the deliberations of the board of studies. In fact, board of studies can have 1 or 2 members from industry to ensure that the curriculum matches the requirements of the industry also. The department must also provide the minutes of the meetings of the board of studies. Feedback and review mechanisms must be clearly spelled out in the process document. The curriculum must be mapped to POs and PSOs, and the matrix showing the correlations to the POs and PSOs must be available. The structure of the curriculum and the components of the curriculum indicate to certain extent the quality of the curriculum. The expectations of the NBA are captured in the criterion 2.1.2 and 2.1.3 in the SAR. It shows that the curriculum must be well balanced, it must have a structure that is appropriate for a degree program, and the documentary evidence must show that the curriculum is balanced and is appropriate for a degree program. The components of the curriculum must also be clearly shown. So, the structure of the curriculum must be presented in the tabular format that is provided in the SAR, the course code, the course title, the credits. It also requires the department to specify the total number of contact hours for lecture, for tutorials and for practicals. Note that the relation between the credit load and the number of contact hours is well defined both by AICTE and UGC. If the relationship between the total number of contact hours and the credits as shown in this table differs substantially from the guidelines provided by AICTE, it could be a problem. So, the department must show the total number of contact hours also, and the total number of contact hours shown must match with those required for the specified credit structure. Seminars, project works may be considered as practicals for the purpose of entering the information into this table. Then the components of the curriculum must be shown in the tabular format, which is shown here, and this is what is expected from the department as per the SAR. So, the course components can be categorized into basic sciences, engineering sciences, humanities and social sciences, program core, program electives, open electives, project or projects, internships, seminars, and if there is any other academic component that needs to be specified. Against each component, the percentage of the total number of credits of the program to that component must be mentioned. Total number of contact hours also must be mentioned, and total number of credits must be mentioned. This table is used to assess the quality of the components of the curriculum. Again, guidelines for the curricular components are provided by AICTE also. Generally, university also will have some guidelines regarding the percentages of various curricular components. The department can evolve these percentages suitably close to the guidelines provided by AICTE and or the university. Subcriterion 2.1.4 deals with the process used to identify the extent of compliance of the curriculum for attaining the POs and PSOs. What is the capability of the curriculum in terms of addressing the POs specified by NBA and the PSOs formulated by the department. The process must clearly show how the mapping is established between the curriculum and the POs and PSOs. And from this mapping, the department must be able to determine the extent to which the curriculum will enable the students to attain the POs and PSOs. The documentary evidence must be available to indicate the process which ensures the mapping and compliance of the curriculum with the POs and PSOs. There are many different ways of developing a process document for this purpose. One sample is shown here. The program articulation matrix, which we will see later comes in subcriterion 3.1, depicts the correlation between the courses and the POs and PSOs. When we look at that column regarding a particular PO, the different courses which address that PO are all shown there. So, if you look at the column average, it is a measure of the extent to which the curriculum is compliant to that particular PO. So, by looking at the column averages, we can arrive at an estimate of the extent to which the curriculum is addressing different POs and PSOs. A sparse column shows that the corresponding PO or PSO is not adequately addressed by the curriculum. That would mean that the curriculum is not addressing that particular PO or PSO effectively. Expectations from relevant organizations like AICTE or professional bodies like ACM or IEEE and industry may also be considered in looking at the quality of the curriculum. The department must have the process document as well as the implementation records. The subcriterion 2.1 program curriculum, but now for a Tier 2 institute. The subcriteria are: state the process used to identify extent of compliance of the university curriculum for attaining the POs and PSOs. Mention the identified curricular gaps if any. Recall that for a Tier 2 institute, the curriculum is provided by the university. The department has no role in the designing of the curriculum, but the department must determine the extent to which the curriculum provided by the university enables the students to attain the POs and PSOs. So, the department must have a process to identify the extent of compliance of the university curriculum for attaining the POs and PSOs. The department must note if there are any curricular gaps. If the curriculum provided by the university is not effectively addressing certain POs, the department must make a note of those POs, and that becomes the basis for identifying the curricular gaps. There are 10 marks for this subcriteria. If the department finds that there are curricular gaps, then it must organize delivery of content beyond the syllabus to help the attainment of POs and PSOs, which are weakly addressed by the curriculum. So, state the delivery details of the content beyond the syllabus for the attainment of POs and PSOs. This subcriterion carries 10 marks. So, the total would be 20 marks. NBA states that if the POs and PSOs are being demonstrably met through the university curriculum, then 2.1.2 will not be applicable and the weightage of 2.1.1 will be 20, the total marks for this subcriterion. However, it is very rare to find the university curriculum that can effectively meet the requirements of all the POs. Most of the cases the department would be finding certain curricular gaps. However, in case the university curriculum is able to effectively address all the POs and PSOs, and if the demonstration by the department is satisfactory, then 2.1.2 would not be relevant. So, the subcriterion 2.1.1 requires the department to state the process used to identify the extent of compliance of the university curriculum for attaining the POs and PSOs. The process of determining the extent to which the university curriculum addresses the POs and PSOs effectively can be quite similar to the process followed by a tier 1 institute. Create the program articulation matrix, look at each individual column to see the extent to which the curriculum is able to address that particular PO. So, the process can be quite similar. The process which is used for such purposes carries 6 marks. List the curricular gaps for the attainments of the defined POs and PSOs. This aspect carries 4 marks. We must have the documentary evidence to indicate the process which ensures the mapping compliance of the university curriculum with the POs and PSOs. And if any gaps are identified, the department must list those gaps. And there must be effective participation of internal and external department stakeholders with effective process implementation. The department must have implementation records to show the effective implementation of the process. The process used to identify the extent of compliance of the university curriculum for attaining the POs and PSOs can be quite similar to the one described for tier 1 institute as already mentioned. Identified curricular gaps, if any, must be listed along with the justifications for the appropriateness of the identified gaps. The department must provide the reasoning based on which it identifies the curricular gaps, and the department must obviously have proper process document and implementation records. Subcriterion 2.1.2 requires the department to provide delivery details of the content beyond the syllabus for the attainment of POs and PSOs. If the department finds that there are gaps in the curriculum in terms of its ability to address effectively certain POs and or PSOs, then it must plan delivery of content beyond the curriculum to help the students attain those POs and PSOs. It must list the details of the delivery of the content beyond the curriculum. The evaluation guidelines include an examination of the steps taken by the department to get the identified gaps included in the curriculum. The department must write a letter to the appropriate authorities of the university, either the chairperson of the board of studies and or the registrar of the university, indicating the identified curricular gaps and suggesting what additional courses could be included in the curriculum to make it effective in terms of addressing all the POs and PSOs. In fact, if the department can maintain a copy of such a letter written to the university, that itself would fetch 2 marks. There are 3 guidelines. One is the steps taken by the department, 2 is delivery details of content beyond the syllabus, and the third is mapping of the content beyond the syllabus with the POs and PSOs. These 3 aspects carry 2 marks, 5 marks and 3 marks respectively, for a total of 10 marks. The department must have evidence that it has communicated to the university regarding the identified curricular gaps. So, a letter to the affiliating university and chairperson University Board of Studies through proper channel of course, providing inputs and suggestions regarding curricular gaps and possible addition of new content add-on courses in the curriculum to bridge the gap and to better attain the program outcomes. The department must be able to produce evidence of such a communication. It must also have evidence of a periodic follow-up action regarding this issue. Delivery details of content beyond the syllabus is the next aspect examined by the committee. Documentary evidence of delivery details of content beyond the syllabus year wise in the specified format must be provided by the department. For the past 3 academic years, the department must provide these details. Content beyond syllabus may include additional course, learning material, content provided to the students, laboratory experiments, projects, etc. The mapping between the additional content and the POs, PSOs addressed by that content must be justifiable. Why this additional content is being provided? What are the POs or PSOs addressed by this additional content? These details must be provided by the department. It is a good practice to analyze the impact of the additional content delivered. For example, the department is offering an add-on course in order to address a particular PO, let us say PO 7, then it is worthwhile for the department to do some kind of survey to assess the extent to which that add-on course is enabling the students to attain that particular PO in a better way. The delivery details of content beyond the syllabus must be provided in the format that is indicated in the SAR. What is the identified gap? What is the action taken? And when was that action taken? The date, month and the year. Resource person with designation who provided this additional content or material. How many students attended this program as a percentage of the total number of students in that class, and most importantly, what is the relevance to the POs and PSOs. The mapping between the additional content and the POs and PSOs must be provided, and this mapping must be done with considerable care and it must be justifiable. The next aspect is the mapping of the content beyond the syllabus with POs and PSOs, which we have shown here in the last column. Availability and appropriateness of mapping table between the contents delivered and the POs and PSOs. As already noted, the mapping between the additional contents delivered and the POs, PSOs must be available and appropriate. Many departments do initiate and execute a large number of activities in this direction to address the curricular gaps. However, departments need to exercise good care in stating the mappings. Often, the content which is delivered may not be really relevant to the PO or PSO which is listed in the table here. For example, the department organizes a purely technical course to address some of the latest developments in the specific domain, and the mapping is to some criteria like environment. Well, the content may really address that particular PO, but quite often it does not have any relationship to that particular PO. The departments are sometimes casual in entering the relevant POs and PSOs. That would not be a proper way of completing this table. The department must ensure that the mapping is proper, appropriate and justifiable. An exercise for you: state the process followed by you to establish the extent to which your curriculum, if you are in a tier 1 institute, or the university curriculum if you are in a tier 2 institute, is addressing the POs and PSOs. Thank you for sharing the results of the exercise at nate.iacta@gmail.com. In the next unit, we will understand the SCR requirements related to the teaching learning process. This is the subcriterion 2.2 of the SCR, which is broadly the program curriculum teaching learning processes. Thank you. We will meet with the next unit. Thank you.